It evolves, yes. Continually. Never ending. New idea of what you want. How do you feel about that? A new desire. Again and again and again. It's what life is, isn't it? Those desires that continue to hatch within you. Do you believe in your ability to receive them? When you do, those desires feel good, don't they? Do you ever have a desire? Do you hold any desires right now that you've been holding for so long they annoy you? I want to enjoy wanting this, but I've wanted it for so long, and it has been so long in not coming that now it's sort of a sore spot. I don't want to run into that friend who's going to say, hey, how about that? Did it happen? So I've been avoiding that friend. Sorry I ever told that friend that I wanted that. Because that friend seems like an ever-present presence to remind me that I'm failing at this most important thing that I want. We're poking around at this with a stick to make it a little sore for you, because we want you by the end of this day to come round to feeling exhilaration about each and every so far yet unfulfilled, not yet manifested desire that you hold. We want you to feel good about those things you desire that have not come into your physical manifested experience. Because by the end of this gathering, we want you to understand why they have not come. And more important, we want you to know where to focus in order to allow them to come. But all of this is not for the purpose of helping you to manifest desires that are currently stubborn and slow in coming. The whole point of all of it is so that you can ease up on that tension that you feel in what isn't yet here. Because if you can figure out how to give yourself a break, how to ease up on the tension you feel for unfulfilled desires, if you can feel easier about things that you want that haven't come, or about things that are currently in your experience that you want not, that you can't figure out how to get rid of, if you can come to this place where you feel ease, even though the manifestation has not yet caught up with the desire, then we will have done the work that we came here to do. Because we know that when you find a way of coming into alignment, which means letting go of tension, coming into alignment, which means lining up with ease, coming into alignment, which means letting go of regret, coming into alignment, which means finding self-love. When you find a way of letting go of grudges and find a way to come into alignment with the lover that you are, when you are able to come into alignment with the whole that is you, then your world will feel good right now. And after all, that's why you want everything you want, isn't it? Isn't every single thing you want, whether it's a material object or a state of being or a pile of money or a relationship or a circumstance or an event, isn't every single thing you want because you believe in the having of it you will feel better? And we just want to help you get it turned around in your own mind so that you can feel it in your own being. We just want you to remember that if you can get yourself to find a way of feeling good, regardless of what's going on. And by that, we don't mean look at awful things and feel good about them. We say find a way of feeling good no matter what's going on, which is really about focusing. It's about focusing as best you can towards what feels as good as you can find it. If you can do that, then you can train, and we mean that in every literal sense, you can train your own vibrational patterns into harmony with who you really are and what you really want. And that's what causes a releasing of tension, because that's what causes a releasing of resistance. It's resistance to who you are, meaning resistance to who you are with all of the things that you've been asking for. It's resistance to who you have become that equals negative emotion. So your negative emotion is not your enemy. Negative emotion is your very best friend, because your negative emotion is pointing right at your self-inflicted, and it is every time, self-inflicted resistance, which is the only thing that is holding you apart from who you really are and all of the things that you want. It will feel so good to you to rediscover your own personal empowerment. We see so many of you standing in a place that you don't want to be, with all kinds of uncontrollable circumstances surrounding you. You can't control your economy. You can't control your government. You can't control what's going on with terrorism and violence around. You can't control your own children. You can't control what's going on in your experience. And yet you keep feeling like if you could just control that, and if you could just control that, if you could just find the power to control those circumstances, then you would feel better. And we want today to show you the difference between what you think of as control or power and what we know is ultimate control and empowerment. In other words, when you are wanting to control someone, think about something all out of whack and you are feeling bad as you are observing it. Whether it's about your world economy, whether it's about your own personal experience, something that you cannot control. There are too many moving parts, and as you attempt to control it, you can't. Well, that feeling of control is right over there next to the fear that you've been feeling, right next to the despair that you've been feeling. That control that you try to muster is right there with revenge and anger, isn't it? That feeling of control that so many people want is way over there on the emotional scale, right next to your greatest disempowerment, where empowerment is on the opposite end of the emotional scale. Empowerment is you being in vibrational alignment or in vibrational sync with who you really are. That's your ultimate empowerment, you see. And yet there are so many people who are really against the idea of seeking any sort of control, because in seeking control there is a sort of not letting go. And we want you to understand that we agree. You cannot let go and allow who you really are when you are seeking power or when you are seeking control. But if you can find today, and we will lay it out for you in such obvious way, if you can find today the difference between control, which is an outside the vortex attempt at moving circumstances and events in order to get things in a place that they feel better, and true empowerment, which is getting into the vortex and therefore in alignment with who you really are, you will discover some keys that will feel like magic to you. Subtle differences in terminology, huge differences in vibration. And when you discover alignment with this energy that creates worlds, you will find true empowerment. You will find the empowerment that you came forth to express through your creative lens. This is the thing that we really, 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 really want you to hear. You cannot train yourself into the vortex from anywhere outside the vortex. In other words, if we were to give you processes all day to try to help you to get into the vortex, it would be less effective than if life just takes you in. Jerry and Esther were driving across from Texas the last couple of days. Coming across New Mexico, there is this most beautiful place. It is called the Texas Canyon. It's in New Mexico. And it's not a canyon. But just the same, it is the most beautiful, 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 beautiful place. And as they drove and saw and breathed and felt, they could not remain outside the vortex. The condition of their moment took them in as they beheld the beauty and the well-being of their planet. Right in the vortex. Now, we don't want you running around looking for things that drag you in. There are plenty of them. But when you find yourself in there, milk it. Practice the vibration of it. Talk about how it feels. Remind yourself this is who you are. Remind yourself that this is the way you're supposed to feel. Remind yourself of the beauty of your planet. Remind yourself of the stability of your planet. Pick up a deck of well-being cards or beautiful pictures of something. In other words, that's the time to stay in the vortex. Practice the inside the vortex vibration. That will serve you far better than anything from outside the vortex you try to do to get in. And there are so many things that life shows you in every day that take you into the vortex. So when you find yourself in there, or when you even think you're in there and aren't sure, milk it. Milk it. Every time you have a moment and you are aware that you just felt a little relief and you're just feeling a little extra lift or high, a little better feeling, stop in that moment and acknowledge, what is it about this that feels so good? Jerry and Esther will sit in a restaurant that feels particularly good and they will play the game. Why do we like being here right now so much? What is it about this place that feels so good? Is it the lighting? Is it the food? Is it the fragrance in the air? Was it our server? Is it being with each other? No, it can't be that. We're always with each other. Must be something else. What is it? What is it? What is it that feels so good about this moment? What is it? And as they reach for it and identify more and more, what they do, they practice the vibration of being in the vortex longer. And this is the thing that we want you to understand. The more you practice it, the easier it is to be there. Don't you know people who are so optimistic that when you try to give them bad news, it just bounces off of them? Children are that way. A little girl in a restaurant, Jerry and Esther were sitting next to them, and the little girl was so taken by Esther. She could hear Esther's voice, so she was standing up in her booth, looking over her booth into the booth where Jerry and Esther were, and all she wanted to do was to see Esther. And Esther began winking at her and doing silly things with her silverware. She was eating with her spoon upside down and putting her napkin over her head. In other words, Esther was not helping the cause at all. Esther was attracting this little girl. And then Esther heard her father scolding her. And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, "No." And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, "No." And Esther is thinking, please turn around and sit down. Please turn around and sit down. But her father grabbed her by the ankles and dragged her across the booth. And then it was no longer a pretty sight over there. Esther felt a little bad about having temporarily dragged her into the vortex when her father clearly likes her better outside of the vortex, behaving herself. When you find yourself in the vortex, milk it with everything that you've got until you have such a vibration going on from inside the vortex that no one and nothing that is reverberating out there with a different frequency has any access to you. And what you will begin to discover is those old troublesome thoughts that used to make their way into your consciousness frequently, they're gone. Old grudges lift off of you. You stop rendezvousing with ornery people. You stop rendezvousing with people in traffic that are inconsiderate. In other words, when you train yourself into a vibration of well-being, when you become solution-directed rather than problem-directed, when you train yourself inside the vortex, everything in your world will shift because you are the point of attraction. So we'll leave it here. We just want you to realize that the larger part of you exists. And the larger part of you, we have not said this before, but we want you to hear it now. If we were standing in your physical shoes, the soul energy, source energy, larger part of us would be our point of attraction. In other words, we would do anything and everything that we could do to deactivate any vibration that would hold us apart from our prosperity, from our well-being, from our clarity, from who we really are, from our love, from our efficiency, from our effectiveness, from our love of life, from our zest for living. We're eager to talk with you about anything. Nothing is off limits. Just be prepared. We're going to drag you in the vortex. You do have some things you want to talk about. It's going to be a wonderful day.